Hello students and welcome to Unit 2 of our flipped classroom. In this unit we are going to learn about applications of percents. In this first lesson we are going to learn about down payments and sales tax. Our essential questions for this and the next two lessons are: how are percents used when buying a home? What are down payments, taxes, and interest? And 3, how are they calculated? The American dream is home ownership. Whether it be a cabin by a lake or a skyscraper view of Manhattan, everyone wants to hold that house key in their hand. However, to get that home, there is a process and some math that needs to be done. The process begins with the bank looking at your income and determining the amount of money that you will qualify for. This is an estimate of the amount that they believe you will be able to repay based on your income. Afterwards, the home search can begin, and when you find that perfect place, you negotiate a contract with the seller. So what's in the contract, and how does it use math? There are many things in a contract, everything from the location of the property and the purchase price, down to the conditions of the purchase and the time frame for completion. But within those components are three important mathematical calculations that need to be addressed. First is the payment method and the deposit on the purchase. These two are negotiated with the bank. Often people need to take a loan from the bank, and the loan requires a down payment. There are also real estate taxes that need to be paid for the year that the house is being purchased within, and those need to be divided appropriately between the seller and the buyer. In today's lesson, we're going to look at two important vocabulary words. The first is down payment. A down payment is a percentage of a purchase price that must be paid to the bank or seller in order to get a loan for the remaining amount. Notice the definition contains the word of. What does the word of indicate that we're going to have to do? That's right, the word of indicates multiplication. We will be taking a percentage times the purchase price in order to calculate the down payment. Sales tax is another calculation within the total cost of the house. Sales tax is a percentage of, here you hear that same operation word, a sale that is paid to the state. To calculate these expenses, you must understand percentages. A percentage is a ratio of how much out of 100. But there are two other ways to write a percent. What are the two other ways to write a percent? We can write it as a decimal or as a fraction. We will need to be able to write it as a decimal in order to make these calculations. So in the next 3 units, we are going to learn to calculate down payments and sales tax, which is going to be in this lesson, prorated taxes, both county and school, which will be in lesson 2, and simple interest due to the bank, which would be in lesson 3. So let's talk about calculating down payments, sales tax, and prorated taxes. All 3 of these, which are going to be addressed in this and the next lesson, you must be able to calculate a percent of a number. What does the word of indicate that you are going to need to do? Multiplication. Now, why do we need down payments? We need down payments because banks usually make 2 stipulations on being allowed to get a loan. And that is, you either have to have a co-signer, someone who already has a house that's willing to sign their house against yours, or you must have 20% of the value of your home as a down payment. And notice, there's that word again, of. Sales tax is an amount added to the purchase price, and that amount goes to the state as payment for your purchase. Normal sales tax in Pennsylvania is 6% of what you buy. That's for all non-necessities. A video game would be a non-necessity. You have to pay tax on it. However, in Pennsylvania, sales tax on a home is a different percentage. It is 2% of the purchase price. In all of these, you heard a percent of some number. So we're going to talk about how you calculate a percent of a number. Here are the 3 steps. First, change the percent to a decimal. Second, change of, the signal word, to a multiplication sign. And last, solve the expression. So here we have a practice problem. It says calculate 15% of 75,000. So our first step is to switch 15% to a decimal. We know that the percent symbol literally means out of 100. 15 out of 100. If we want to write that as a decimal, we know that the hundredths column is 2 digits over, so we need 15 written in the hundredths column, 1500. So we have 0.15. Second step, we know that of indicates multiplication. So we're going to multiply that by 75,000. So we'll start by putting 75,000 and multiply it by 0.15. 15% would be like 15 cents out of $1. That's how you can remember how to write it. 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 5 is 25, 5 times 7 is 35, and 2 more makes 37. We need a placeholder because this 1 is in the tenths column. 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 7 is 7. We add these two to get 0, 0, 0, 5 and 0 make 5, 7 and 5 make 12, 1 and 3 make 4, plus 7 makes 11. Now, since 15 hundredths has 2 place values, we need 2 place values in our answer. 3 places over, we'll put a comma, and we see that 15% of 75,000 is the same as 11,250. Let's do another practice problem. You may pause the video and try it on your own if you're ready for that. Remember, there are 3 steps in calculating a percent of a number. The first is to change the percent to a decimal. 2% literally means 2 out of 100, so we need a 2 in the hundredths column. This is the tenths column, this is the hundredths column, so we need a 2 in the hundredths column. What will we write here in the tenths column? That's right, 0, because there are no tenths in the number 2. So we have 0.02. Second step, we know that of means to multiply 250,000. So we write 250,000 times 0.02. 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 5 is 10, 2 times 2 is 4, and 1 more makes 5. We know that there are 2 place values, so we need 2 place values, so we get 5,000. So 2% of 250,000 is 5,000. Remember, 2% is the tax amount on a house. So if we bought a house for $250,000, we'd have to pay $5,000 in taxes. Let's now look at a real-world application. If we want to buy a house, so we're buying a house, and it's worth $125,000, How much money will we need for a down payment? Now remember, a down payment is a percent of a cost. Do you remember what percent a down payment typically is? Not always, but typically. That's right, 20%. So our first step is that we need to change this percent to a decimal. Remember, percent means out of 100, so we need 20 in the hundredths column. Here's the tenths, here's the hundredths. So 0.20 literally reads 20 hundredths. Second step, change of to a multiplication sign. And we know the cost. The cost is $125,000. So now we will calculate or solve this expression. So 125,000 times 0.20. We do not need to multiply this 0 because 0 times any number is just 0. And when we add it to what we get when we multiply the 2, we'll get the same thing as if we would just multiply the 2. The only thing we have to remember is that we need to put a placeholder so that the 2's multiplication goes in the tenths column. 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 5 is 10, 2 times 2 is 4, and 1 more is 5, and 2 times 1 is 2. 2 place values, so we get 25,000. So if we were going to restate, we'd say I would need $25,000 as a down payment on this house. So before I receive the loan for the rest, I would have to pay that amount. So let's look at buying the same house, the same amount of money. How much would we have to pay in sales tax? Again, sales tax is a percent of a cost. What percent of the cost do we have to pay for sales tax in Pennsylvania? That's right, 2%. So we need to change the 2% to a decimal. The 2 needs to be in the hundredths column, so we put 0.0, because that's the tenths column, 2, and the 2's in the hundredths column. Of means to multiply by the cost, which is $125,000. So we take 125,000 and multiply by 0.02. 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 5 is 10, 2 times 2 is 4, and 1 more is 5. 2 times 1 is 2. Again, we do not need to multiply the 0 because it's just going to make 0. Anything times 0 is 0. But we do need 2 place values, so we get $2,500. And if I were to restate my answer, I would say I would have to pay $2,500 in sales tax if I was going to buy this house. So let's summarize what we've learned. We've learned that when buying a house, math is involved. We've looked at how a down payment is a percent of a cost you must pay before receiving a loan for the rest of the cost. And typically, a down payment is what percent? 20%. Is it always? No, but it's a typical amount. Sales tax, we also learned, is part of buying a house. We said that sales tax is a percent of a sale paid to the government. And in this case, if you are buying a house, sales tax is 2% in Pennsylvania. Remember, both down payments and sales tax require you to calculate a percent, which we will always change to a decimal, of, which means to multiply, a number, which is the cost.